AITA for staying silent when my wife served me with divorce papers at my father's funeral. I'm 34, and my wife, Erin, is 32. She works part-time as a yoga instructor, making maybe $25,000 a year teaching classes at a boutique studio downtown. I met her at a friend's party. At first, I thought she was great, independent, with her own life. She did not seem like the type to care about money. That changed about 3 years into our marriage. It started small. Comments about how her friends' husbands took them on better vacations. How so-and-so just bought a luxury SUV. Why were we not moving into a bigger house in a better neighborhood? I made good money, but I was not stupid with it. I maxed out my 401k contributions, kept a 6-month emergency fund, and invested the rest. The house we lived in was a nice 3-bedroom place my father helped me buy before we got married. The mortgage was only $180,000 because my dad put down half of the down payment as an early inheritance gift. Erin hated that the house was technically mine. We had it appraised at $520,000 2 years prior, and she started hinting that I should add her name to the deed. We're married. What's yours is mine anyway, she would say. I always dodged it. Something in my gut told me not to. Her best friend, Jade, was pure poison. Divorced twice before 30, she was always whispering in Erin's ear that I was financially controlling because I would not let her spend whatever she wanted whenever she wanted. We had a joint account for household expenses that I contributed $4,000 a month to. Erin contributed maybe $800. She also had her own account for her personal spending, but somehow, me not giving her unlimited access to my accounts made me the villain. Jade would come over, drink my coffee, sit on my couch, and lecture me about modern marriage. That couples should have total financial transparency, that real men do not make their wives ask for money. This was coming from someone living off alimony from husband number 2 and already scouting for number 3. I should have seen the red flags sooner. For years into the marriage, Erin started constantly comparing us to others. Her cousin bought a beach condo in Florida. Why did we not have one? A coworker's husband bought her a new BMW for her birthday. Why was I so cheap? It did not matter that we took 2 vacations a year and that I had bought her a perfectly good Lexus 3 years before. The sense of entitlement just kept growing. First, she suggested I should pay off her student loan because we were married. Then she wanted to remodel the kitchen, even though there was nothing wrong with it. Then she started pushing to buy a lake house as an investment property. Every conversation ended up being about spending more money on things she wanted. I'm a practical guy. I grew up watching my father work himself to the bone building his construction business. I saw him go without things so he could invest in equipment and inventory. I watched him save every dollar he could. He taught me that wealth is not about showing off. It is about security and freedom. Erin never understood that. The breaking point with Jade happened about 6 months before everything blew up. She was at our house during one of their weekly girls' brunches that always ended with Erin coming to me with a new demand. This time, Erin wanted $15,000 to invest in Jade's new essential oils business. One of those multi-level marketing things. It's not a pyramid scheme, Erin insisted. It's network marketing. Jade is making 6 figures. Jade is lying. Show me her tax returns. You don't trust me to make my own business decisions. I don't trust Jade not to scam you out of $15,000 we'd never see again. We fought for 3 days. I did not give her the money. Jade started posting vague things on social media about toxic men and financial abuse. Erin stopped talking to me for a week, sleeping in the guest room and acting like I had committed an unforgivable sin for not funding her friend's obvious scam. The silent treatment lasted 9 days. Days of slammed doors, exaggerated sighs whenever I entered a room, and intentionally audible phone calls to Jade. She finally broke the silence to tell me I was emotionally immature and incapable of supporting her dreams. Her dreams, apparently, involved losing $15,000 on scented oils. That is when I noticed Erin getting very secretive with her phone, angling it away when I walked by, stepping outside to take calls, and changing her passcode from our anniversary to something I did not know. Classic signs, but I did not jump to conclusions. Maybe she was just being spiteful about the essential oils thing. Then my father got sick. Pancreatic cancer. From diagnosis to death in 4 months. The quickest, most brutal thing I have ever seen. My dad went from a strong man who could still frame a house at 70 to a skeleton who could not use the bathroom without help. I spent every evening at his house after work. I used my paid time off to drive him to doctor's appointments. The last month, I moved him into our guest room so I could properly care for him. Erin complained constantly. She said it was disrupting our life and that she didn't sign up to be a caregiver. He's my father, and he's dying. Where else is he supposed to go? A facility. That's what they're for, she said. We fought about that, too. In fact, she tried to guilt me about the cost of his medications and supplies, as if I should let him suffer to save a few $100s a month. The medications alone were around $800, even with insurance. Erin acted like I was personally bankrupting us to keep my father comfortable in his final weeks. We're supposed to be saving for our future, she said one night while my dad slept down the hall. Not spending it all on someone who's already lived his life. I stared at her like I had never seen her before. That's my father you're talking about. I'm just being practical, she said. You're always talking about being practical with money. There's a difference between being practical and being heartless. Guess which one you're being right now. She just rolled her eyes and went back to her phone. That moment should have told me everything I needed to know. Erin barely spoke to my dad during his last month with us. She would leave the house when the hospice nurses came. She would make excuses not to help with anything. This is a man who had been generous to her for 9 years, who helped us with the house, who welcomed her into the family, and she could not even bring herself to sit with him for an hour. My dad noticed. He never said anything, but I could see it in his eyes. The disappointment, the realization. He was always a good judge of character. He built a successful business partly because he knew which clients would pay and which would disappear, which subcontractors were reliable, and which would cause problems. He had been reading Erin all along. 2 weeks before he died, Dad called me into his room when Erin was out teaching one of her yoga classes. He had had a rough day, barely eating and struggling to stay awake for more than an hour at a time. But when I came in, his eyes were sharp and focused. Son, we need to talk about something important. He looked serious, not sad dying dad serious, but lawyer meeting serious. Erin's going to leave you. I started to protest, but he held up a hand. The same gesture he had used my whole life when he needed me to shut up and listen. I've seen this before. Watch my partner's son go through the same thing. Wife was sweet as pie until his old man died. Then 6 months later, she filed for divorce, tried to take half of everything, including the inheritance. Your mother saw it, too, before she passed. We talked about it back then. We were worried it might happen to you one day. My mother died when I was 19, also from cancer. A different kind, but just as brutal. Dad never remarried. Said mom was it for him, and he was not interested in a replacement. I don't want that for you, he continued. So about 3 years ago, I talked to my lawyer when I started noticing how Erin looked at assets instead of people. Everything I'm leaving you is going into a trust. The house, the vehicles, my investment accounts, all of it. You're the sole trustee and beneficiary. Erin can't touch a thing in a divorce. Dad, I don't think she'd. Let me finish. The trust was set up 9 years ago, right before you introduced me to Erin. Call it a father's intuition. It includes the house you're living in now, since I put up half the down payment. I technically own half of it until last week when I transferred my share into the trust. Your name is on the deed, but the trust holds the controlling interest. Same with the 2 rental properties you didn't know I owned. Same with the $740,000 in investment accounts and the paid-off truck in my garage. I felt like I had been hit by a truck. $740,000? Rental properties. I saved my whole life. Lived below my means. Invested smart. The properties are over on Elm Street. 2 duplexes I bought in the 90s for next to nothing. They've been cash flowing for 20 years. Paid off now. Together, they're worth about $760,000 and bring in $3,400 a month after expenses and management. It's all yours now. Well, the trusts. Same difference. My head was spinning. I knew Dad was comfortable, but I had no idea he had amassed that much. Why didn't you ever tell me? You didn't need to know. You were busy building your own life, your career. I was proud of that. Still am. But I'll be damned if I'm going to let some yoga instructor who can't be bothered to sit with a dying man walk away with half of what took me 40 years to build. He coughed, a wet sound that made me want to call the nurse, but he waved me off. Erin's going to panic when she finds out, I said. Dad smiled. looking more alive than he had in weeks. Here's the beautiful part. Remember that paperwork I had you and Aaron sign when you bought the house? The quitclaim deed stuff? I did. Dad had been refinancing something or transferring some ownership thing and needed our signatures to make it legal. We went to his lawyer's office and signed 6 or 7 pages. This was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. That wasn't just a quitclaim. We buried a beneficiary waiver in there where Aaron acknowledged she had no claim to any assets transferred from me to you, either in life or in death. My lawyer buried it in the legalese on page 4. You read the whole thing because I specifically told you to check pages 3 and 4 for the liability clauses, but Aaron just signed where we pointed. She didn't read a single word, even initialed 6 separate sections without looking at what she was agreeing to. He chuckled softly, then coughed again. That sounds almost cruel, Dad. No, son. Cruel is refusing to help care for a dying man because it's an inconvenience. Cruel is complaining about the cost of medicine while I'm trying not to scream in pain. Cruel is planning your exit strategy while your husband watches his father die. I'm not being cruel. I'm being protective. There's a difference. He reached out and gripped my hand with what little strength he had left. If Erin really loves you, this won't matter. She'll stay with you regardless of the money. If she's who I think she is, you'll find out real fast after I'm gone. Either way, you're protected. That's all a father can ask for. And if I'm wrong about her, then I'm wrong. And you have a nice nest egg for your future. But I'm not wrong. Watch what happens in the next few months. She's already checked out emotionally, son. I can see it. She's just waiting. He died 13 days later, at 4:17 in the morning on a Tuesday. I was holding his hand. Erin was asleep in our bedroom and did not even come out when the hospice nurse called the time of death at 4:19. I had to go wake her up to tell her dad was gone. Her response was, "Okay, I'm going back to sleep. We'll deal with everything in the morning." No tears, no hug, no comfort for the man who just lost his father. She just rolled over and went back to sleep. I stayed with Dad's body until the funeral home arrived at 6 in the morning, holding his hand even as it grew cold. For all his faults, I promised him I would be smart with what he left me. The hospice nurse, an older woman named Nora who had seen it all, patted me on the shoulder and said something I will never forget. "Your wife didn't come out." I shook my head. "Then your father did the right thing protecting you. I've seen this before. Some people see death as an opportunity instead of a loss. You take care now." The funeral was that Friday. Nothing fancy. Dad was not big on ceremony. A small service at the funeral home, maybe 40 people. Then the burial next to Mom at Riverside Cemetery. I gave a short eulogy about Dad's work ethic, his kindness, and his wisdom. A few of Dad's old contractor buddies said some words. His old partner gave a speech that had everyone laughing through their tears. The whole thing lasted about 90 minutes. I held it together pretty well until they lowered the casket. That is when it really hit me. Both parents gone. The last connection to my childhood, to my history, to the man who taught me everything about how to be a man, disappearing into the ground. I'm not ashamed to say I cried. Erin stood next to me, dry-eyed, checking her phone twice during the burial. Afterward, we were at the reception at Dad's lawyer's office. They had set up a conference room with sandwiches and coffee, some cookies, basic reception stuff, very low-key, exactly how Dad would have wanted it. I was talking to Dad's old partner about some properties they developed together back in the day when Erin walked up with this look on her face. Not sad, not sympathetic, but determined, almost excited. She was holding a manila folder. "We need to talk," she said, quiet but firm. "Now?" "In private." I excused myself and followed her into an empty office down the hall. She closed the door behind us, and before I could ask what was wrong, she opened the folder, and I saw the words "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage" at the top of the first page. "I'm filing for divorce," she announced. No preamble, no emotion, no easing into it. She just dropped it like she was telling me she was running to the store. "I've waited long enough to do this. I didn't want to upset your father while he was sick, but he's gone now, so here we are." I just stared at her. We are literally at my father's funeral reception. 50 feet away, people are eating egg salad sandwiches and drinking coffee at my father's funeral reception, and my wife is handing me divorce papers. "You're doing this now?" "Today. I wanted to do it 6 months ago, but Jade said it would look really bad if I left you while your dad was actively dying. So I waited. But I'm not waiting anymore. You can look those over and give them to your lawyer. I've already got mine. What lawyer? Get one. You're going to need it. I'm asking for half of everything. The house, the cars, your retirement accounts, everything. 7 years of marriage entitles me to half the marital assets. She actually smirked when she said that last part. Not a sad, apologetic smirk, but a satisfied one, like she had been planning this moment for months, and it was finally happening, and she was thrilled about it. You've really thought this through, I said slowly. I've been talking to Mary Ann for 3 months. She's the best divorce attorney in the state. She says I have an excellent case. You make almost 6 times what I do. I'll probably get spousal support, too. That is when it all clicked. Dad was right. He had called it perfectly. Understood, I said. I took the folder. I did not open it. I did not flip through the pages. I did not argue. I did not yell. I did not beg her to reconsider. I just took the folder and walked to the door. Her smirk faltered. That's it. That's all you're going to say. What do you want me to say? Most men would be upset right now. Angry. Something. You've made your decision. Nothing I say is going to change that. You're not even going to fight for us. I turned and looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman I had been married to for 7 years, built a life with, trusted completely, and all I felt was tired. You just handed me divorce papers at my father's funeral. You didn't come out of the bedroom when he died. You complained about the cost of his medicine while he was in agony. You're standing here right now telling me you've been planning this with a lawyer for 3 months while I watched my dad waste away. What, exactly, is there to fight for? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I went back to the reception, put the folder in my car, finished talking to guests, shook hands, accepted condolences for Dad, and thanked people for coming. I went home that night and slept in the guest room. Erin was shocked that I was not devastated. Over the next few days, she tried to start fights about it. Don't you want to know why? Not particularly. I'm serious. Don't you want to know what you did wrong? I'm sure you'll eventually tell me, whether I want to hear it or not. You're impossible. Most men would be begging right now, trying to fix things. I'm not most men, and there's nothing to fix. You've made it pretty clear this is over. That infuriated her. She wanted the drama. She wanted to see me broken and pleading. She wanted the satisfaction of watching me fall apart, so she could feel justified in her decision. Instead, I just existed around her like a roommate she found mildly annoying. She tried another tack. You're going to regret this. When you're all alone in this house, you're going to wish you had tried harder. Maybe. Or maybe I'll be relieved I don't have to deal with someone who sees my father's death as the opportune time to cash out. Her face turned red. That is not what this is about. Then what is it about, Erin? Explain it to me. Why hand me divorce papers at his funeral? Why wait just long enough for him to die before you file? Why spend 3 months planning this with a lawyer while I was grieving? She had no answer. She just stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. Monday morning, I called Dad's lawyer, Harold. I told him about the divorce papers. Right? He said, without missing a beat. Your father predicted this almost to the week. He told me to expect it anywhere from the day of the funeral to 2 weeks after. Come in tomorrow at 2, and we'll go over everything. And under no circumstances do you tell Erin about the trust until after her lawyer files all the initial paperwork. Let her do all her math on incomplete information. The bigger the shock later, the better. Tuesday, I met Harold at his office and brought the divorce papers Erin had given me. He looked them over and actually laughed. She's asking for half of everything. The house, vehicles, retirement accounts, even half of any inheritance you receive. This is beautiful. She has no idea what's coming. He explained the whole structure. The trust was ironclad, created 9 years ago, months before I even met Erin. Every asset my father owned was in it. The house I lived in was technically owned by the trust, even though my name was on the deed as the primary resident, because my father's down payment had established a partial ownership he transferred into the trust the month before he died. The waiver Erin signed meant she acknowledged she had absolutely no claim on assets derived from my father, transferred during his life or after his death. She could not claim she did not know, because the document explicitly stated what she was waiving. She just did not bother to read it. So what does she actually get? Whatever's in the joint accounts at the time of separation. Her own accounts, her personal property, her vehicle. That is it. The house, your vehicles, the investment accounts, the 2 rental properties, that is all owned by the trust, and she waived any claim to it. The trust also protected your 401k contributions made during the marriage, because those contributions were made from income derived from trust-managed assets. I don't understand how that works. Your father was exceptionally thorough. He had you restructure your employment situation 3 years ago. Remember when he helped you set up that consulting business for tax purposes? Said it would save you 15 to 20% a year. I did. Dad had introduced me to his accountant, who set up an LLC for my freelance network consulting work. I made maybe $15,000 to $20,000 a year doing side projects through it. Dad said it was smart for liability, tax, and retirement planning. That LLC is owned by the trust. Your employer pays the LLC for your consulting services, and the LLC pays you. Your primary employment income flows through a complex but legal structure that technically makes it income derived from the trust. Your 401k contributions come from that income. It's creative estate planning and tax strategy that Aaron's lawyer is going to absolutely hate when she finds out. This seems extreme. Your father watched a lot of good men get destroyed in divorces, including his own business partner. He spent 40 years building wealth, and he was not about to let someone take half of it just for sticking around long enough to cash in. Aaron will get whatever is in the joint account, which I assume is what? $8,000 or $10,000, and she can keep her car. That is it. The joint account had about $8,200 at the time of separation. So what now? You need a family law attorney. I'm referring you to my partner. Elise has handled cases just like this before. She'll file a response to Aaron's petition, and we'll see what happens when the discovery process reveals the trust structure. I hired Elise that same day. She reviewed everything and actually smiled. This is one of the most comprehensive asset protections I've ever seen. Your father clearly knew what he was doing. Aaron is going to think she's getting half of everything until the discovery process reveals the trust. Then, this is going to get very entertaining, very fast. I don't know if entertaining is the word I would use. Trust me, women who serve divorce papers at funerals because they couldn't wait one more week deserve exactly what's coming to them. I moved into the guest room permanently. Erin pranced around the house like she had already won the lottery. She started spending more, charging things to her personal credit cards. She would come home with designer bags and new clothes. She would talk loudly on the phone to Jade about how she was finally going to be free, and how I was going to regret how I treated her, and how she deserved someone who valued her. I never treated her poorly. I just did not fund unlimited spending sprees or want to pay for her friends' pyramid schemes. She even started redecorating, talking about what she would do with her half of the money from the house once it was sold, how she was going to buy a nice condo downtown, maybe travel for a while, take that trip to Europe she always wanted. All on my money, or so she thought. I said nothing. I just watched her build these elaborate fantasies about her post-divorce life. She hired Marianne, an aggressive lawyer known for taking men to the cleaners in divorces. Very expensive, very ruthless, very successful. Marianne sent a letter to Elise in less than 2 weeks, demanding I immediately vacate the marital home and begin paying temporary spousal support of $3,500 a month during the proceedings. Elise's response was a masterpiece of legal language that basically said, the client will remain in his dwelling as he is the sole legal resident and deed holder. Erin is a guest and is welcome to vacate at her leisure. No temporary spousal support will be provided, as the client contests any obligation. Attached is documentation pertaining to asset ownership and marital property classification. That attachment was the trust documents, all the incorporation papers from 9 years ago, the transfer documents, and the beneficiary waiver Erin had signed. 2 days later, Erin called me at work, literally screaming into the phone. What the hell do you mean the house is in a trust? What trust? You can't just hide assets in a trust. Marianne says that's illegal. I'm not hiding anything. My father set that trust up 9 years ago, before we even met. Everything he owned was transferred into it. That's illegal. We were married. Anything you inherited during the marriage is marital property, not when you signed a waiver giving up any claim to it. What waiver? I never signed a waiver. Yes, you did. About 5 years ago, at Dad's lawyer's office when we signed the house paperwork. You might want to look at page 4, right above where you initialed 6 times. Silence on the other end of the phone. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head. What documents? I don't remember signing anything like that. The quitclaim and beneficiary documents for the house transfer. Dad's lawyer has the originals with your signature. Elise has copies. You signed in 6 different places and initialed next to every clause. It's all documented. More silence. Then her voice got smaller. I didn't know what I was signing. That's not really a legal defense, Erin. You're a grown woman. You signed legal documents without reading them. That's on you. She hung up. She called back an hour later with a completely different tone. Crying now, the victim role in full effect. This isn't fair. I've been your wife for 7 years. I gave up opportunities for this marriage. I deserve half of what we built together. You deserve half of what we built together. That's the $8,200 in the joint account. You can have half of that, $4,100, plus your car that you're still making payments on. That is what we built together. The house is worth over $500,000. I've lived here for 7 years. The house was an investment of my father's that he allowed me to use. You signed a document acknowledging you had no claim to anything he transferred to me. You should have read it before you signed. You tricked me. This was planned. You and your father planned this to screw me over. No, my dying father protected me from this exact situation. He saw you coming a mile away. He predicted you would file within a week of his death. He was off by 4 days. She completely lost it. She started screaming about lawyers and judges and how she was going to take everything from me, about what a horrible person I was, about how she would make sure everyone knew what kind of man I really was. I just let her scream until she ran out of breath. When she finally ran out of steam, I said, completely calm, "Are you done? Good. Do not call me again. All communication from now on will be through lawyers." I hung up and blocked her number. For the next 6 weeks, Marian tried every legal maneuver she could think of. She challenged the creation date of the trust, claiming it was fraudulent. She challenged the waiver, claiming Erin signed under duress. She demanded a 15-year forensic financial investigation looking for hidden assets. She subpoenaed Dad's lawyer, demanding to know if the trust was created specifically to avoid marital property claims. Elise demolished every one of them. The trust was created 9 years ago, notarized, dated, and filed with the state, completely legal and predating the marriage by several months. The waiver was signed in a law office with a notary present, with zero evidence of coercion or undue pressure. Erin was given time to read the documents, offered the opportunity to have her own lawyer review them, and signed voluntarily. The financial investigation showed exactly what Elise said it would. All major assets were trust property, and marital assets were minimal. The rental properties were especially devastating for Erin. She had no idea they existed. Dad bought them in 1996 for $85,000 each. He paid them off in 15 years and had been quietly collecting rent for decades. They were now worth about $380,000 each and generated $3,400 a month in net rental income after management and maintenance expenses. All owned by the trust. All protected by the waiver. The discovery process also revealed Dad's investment accounts. The $740,000 he had mentioned had grown to about $890,000 by the time everything was settled and transferred to the trust after his death. Erin's lawyer tried to argue that inheritances received during a marriage are marital property under state law. Elise immediately dismantled that with case law and the beneficiary waiver. Erin had explicitly waived any claim to assets transferred from the deceased, including but not limited to inheritances, gifts, and property transfers. She could not now claim half of an inheritance she had contractually agreed she had no right to. The judge agreed. 2 months into the divorce proceedings, Marianne withdrew from the case. She sent Erin a bill for $28,400 and told her to seek new representation because the case was unwinnable, and she did not take cases to trial she knew were losers. Erin tried to represent herself for about a week before reality hit. She had been living in the house rent-free while the divorce was proceeding, but Elise filed for exclusive possession, and the judge granted it. Erin was given 30 days to vacate the property. She called me from a different number, crying and begging. "I have nowhere to go. I can't afford an apartment on what I make. Please, just give me more time. Give me something." "Why?" "Oh, you should have thought of that before you served me papers at my father's funeral. I made a mistake. I'll drop the lawsuit. We can fix this. I still love you." "No, you don't. You loved what you thought you were going to get in the divorce. Big difference." Please, I'm begging you. Now you're begging. Where was this energy when my father was dying? Where was it when you were planning this with Marianne for 3 months? Where was all this when you handed me those papers at his funeral reception? Silence. That's what I thought. You have 30 days. Start packing. She moved in with Jade. She started working full-time at the yoga studio and picked up night shifts at a health food store to make her share of the rent on Jade's apartment. She would post sad quotes on social media about betrayal and men who hide their true natures. Jade would post long rants about how the legal system is rigged against women and how family courts favor men with money. I posted nothing. I just lived my life. I went to work, managed my properties, and started enjoying my house again without someone constantly complaining about everything in it. 3 months after Dad died, the divorce was finalized. Erin got $4,100 from the joint account after the 50-50 split, her CRV with a $12,000 outstanding loan, her personal belongings, and a very expensive lesson about reading legal documents before signing them. Total time married, 7 years. Total assets she walked away with, about $22,000 in vehicle equity and cash, minus the $28,400 she owed Marianne, leaving her roughly $6,400 in the red. What I kept: the house, appraised at $520,000, 2 rental properties valued at a combined $760,000, $890,000 in investment accounts, Dad's fully paid-off truck valued at $45,000, my 401k with $180,000, and the satisfaction of watching someone who tried to financially ambush me during my grief walk away with practically nothing. She tried one last manipulation at the final hearing. She showed up dressed all in black, like she was in mourning, and gave this whole speech about how I had changed after my father's death and became cold and calculating. She said she had hoped I would grieve and heal and go back to being the man she married, that she still loved me but could not reach me anymore. The judge looked at the timeline of her filings. You filed for divorce on the same day as the funeral, while he was in the middle of grieving. Your sympathy appears to be remarkably selective, ma'am. I was trying to give him space to process his grief without the pressure of a divorce. By handing him papers at a reception with 50 witnesses? Let's not insult the court's intelligence. Petition granted. Assets divided according to the prenuptial waiver signed by the plaintiff on May 14, 9 years ago, when the trust structure was established and explained to both parties. No one explained anything to me. I was tricked. This was all designed to rob me. You signed 6 pages of legal documents without reading them, including initialing clauses that explicitly stated what you were waiving. That is not being tricked, ma'am. That is being negligent with your own interests. We are done here. Next case. It went something like that. I walked out of that courtroom feeling lighter than I had in years, like a weight I did not even know I was carrying had been lifted. Jade tried one last act of revenge about a week later. She posted a long screed on social media claiming I had abused and manipulated Erin for years, that I had robbed her of her future, that I was a narcissist who illegally hid assets to evade responsibility. Elise sent her a cease and desist letter threatening a lawsuit for defamation and damages. The post was gone in under 90 minutes. Jade's social media went silent for 2 weeks after that. Erin sent me one last text from another new number. I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life. You took everything from me. I hope you can live with yourself. My response: you destroyed your own life when you thought you could profit from my grief. All I did was let you face the consequences of your own decisions. Also, stop contacting me, or I will file for harassment. I blocked that number, too. 6 months later. I am doing great. The rental properties are cash flowing beautifully, basically paying my entire mortgage and living expenses. The investment accounts are growing steadily. I got a promotion at work and am now making $165,000. I am dating a woman named Paige who is a physical therapist, makes very good money on her own, and has never, not once, asked me about my financial worth. We split the bill when we go out, and last week, she even argued with me because she wanted to pay for her own movie ticket. A complete breath of fresh air. I ran into Erin once at a grocery store, about 4 months after the divorce was finalized. She looked rough, tired, stressed, older than her years. Working 2 jobs to afford a shared rental with Jade was taking its toll. She tried to approach me in the produce section. Can we talk for a minute, please? No. I kept walking. I did not look back. I did not feel bad about it, either. The last I heard from mutual friends is that she is dating some guy who works at a Best Buy and lives with his parents at 35. She posts pictures on social media trying to look happy, but everyone who knows her knows she is miserable. Jade is apparently on to husband number 3, some older guy with money who will probably wise up one day, too, when he realizes what he got himself into. Comment. What I hope you take away from this is how crucial it is to see people for who they truly are, especially under pressure. True self-respect is not about winning an argument, but about knowing when to walk away from a battle not worth fighting. Setting firm boundaries is not an act of aggression, but an act of self-preservation. Boundaries are the lines we draw to protect our own peace and well-being. We are each responsible for our own actions and the consequences that follow. The most profound healing often happens quietly, away from the noise and drama. This reminds us to practice kindness and empathy, especially when we are faced with someone else's grief. Choosing peace over toxicity will always lead you toward healthier and more genuine connections. Remember to trust your intuition and build a life in which you feel safe and respected. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.